Welcome to the Bowhunter Podcast. All bow hunting, all the time. Now, here's your host, editor Christian Berg.
All right, welcome back to the Bowhunter Podcast. We are all bow hunting all the time. And today, about all I can say is holy sheep. Holy sheep. That is the title of today's episode. And we've got no stranger to the Bowhunter brand, a longtime Bowhunter contributor, a former Bowhunter employee, a current co-host of Bowhunter Television, and one of the most recent Colorado Bighorn sheep slayers to be minted, and that is none other than Mr. Danny Ferris. Danny, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, buddy. I appreciate it. It.
I'll tell you what, man, you've had a hell of a fall, and before we even dive into that, I mean, not only are you getting lucky in the field, but your Broncos are getting lucky on the field. And man, the Broncos and Patriots are back to like being relevant again. This is fun.
Leave it to Burglar to bring this up the day after a terrible loss.
Tough loss. I'm telling you, baby. I'm telling you, the AFC race is getting interesting again. Your Broncos finally lost a game. My Pats pulled out a good one. It's going to be wire to wire or a photo finish down the stretch here in the AFC.
Man, that was painful yesterday. I was at that game, and so I felt the pain in person. Jacksonville they're good. And with you guys last night, Harbaugh benched Henry for the last 12 minutes.
Chris Collins,
and he was running all over. Like I
said, we
should
send them a Christmas card for that. That was great.
Yeah. Well, it was you guys played a good game. So we don't want to go down this. Me and Berg have a long-standing thing going way back to Brady and Manning. With the Pats and the Broncos, and it's kind of crazy because we've been in the background here till this year, and now all of a sudden our teams are right back up on top and competing. And so of course Berg calls me and talks a little bit of crap here and there, and I do the same thing. I might be guilty.
I like to send Danny texts late at night.
Yes, yeah, like suffer. Last night it was just suffer.
Listen, by the time this podcast air, in a couple of weeks, it's going to be all different. I mean, who knows,
Yeah.
But I tell you one thing, and I'll give you this, and then we're going to move on. I've told Danny this privately. I will say it publicly. I think that it would be a pretty good matchup if the two teams were to face. But one thing I absolutely do not want to do is see the Patriots have to go into Mile High, because despite your loss yesterday, it's a very, very difficult place to play. And for the Patriots, you talk about going back to the Brady years, like Brady didn't have a stinker very often, but often when he would have one, it would be in that stadium. I do not like that place.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Well, back to the bow hunting. Gosh, this is going to go back many years, and I don't even know how many, but I guess we would start it like this. The story began a long time ago when Danny Ferris started putting in for preference points for a Colorado sheep tag. And how many years did it take?
I think it was 25. I haven't looked back to make sure, but it was a long time. Colorado has the Colorado Bowhunters Association, I should say, which is a great state organization. It's one of the best ones out there. They have a couple of awards that they give out, the Big 8 and the Big 9. The Big 9 is all 9 species of big game in Colorado. The Big 8 is all the species except for moose, because there are actually some people who will probably never draw a moose tag in their lifetime. I mean, it's just that hard to do. I got really lucky, and I drew my moose tag early on, way back in 2010. And then I also drew a mountain goat tag in 2012. And the three species in Colorado that are really difficult to draw are moose, goat, and bighorn sheep. So since 2012, I shouldn't say that because I actually killed my mountain lion in 2014. But since that time, about 10 years, I've been waiting to draw a bighorn sheep tag to complete my Big 8 and my Big 9, you know, and I was starting to wonder whether it would happen. Now, with that said, I was putting in for a tag that was pretty difficult to draw, and I knew it, you know. I relate it to a good analogy is if you only get to go fishing one time in your life, you want to go to a pond that has some big fish, right? Well, I kind of look at it like that, man. I'm not going to put in for a tag that is subpar. I was putting in for one particular tag that's very difficult to draw. It was also a rut hunt, and that was very appealing to me because I just think that those sheep, you know, most of the tags are for August, and this tag is for December. And if you look at the same sheep, a photo of the sheep in August compared to what he looks like in December, it's just, I think they're awesome. I think they're awesome in the rut.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know much about sheep, but I have to imagine it's different. It's kind of the similar thing to looking at a big whitetail buck in September versus November.
Yeah. And, you know, out here in the West, you know, we get into mule deer guys, and some mule deer guys are, I mean, they're so commonly hunted in the velvet in September that there's guys that actually prefer them that time of year. I'm not one of them. I prefer my mule deer like this right here, hard horned, rutted up, big thick neck, just, you know, looking like a linebacker. You know, to me, I just think that I think that they are more appealing during that time. And the same with the sheep, man. The sheep, they just look like little behemoths. I mean, they're just awesome this time of year. So,
but you know, I immediately think though, I mean, my first thought as I hear you talk about this, I'm like, okay, he wants to go hunt this sheep in December. That's what you said, right?
In the rut.
And I'm like, man, they're up there at a pretty good elevation. That's got to be cold. It's got to be cold as hell. Get out in December in Colorado sheep hunting.
It was super cold. But this particular, this particular herd is not a high elevation herd. The herd I was hunting, it's kind of funny. It was created by accident years ago. There was some sheep that were trapped in one part of the state, and they were transplanting them to another part of the state. And this was in 1949 where they were doing it. They were trying to, you know, not necessarily establish a new herd, but support or, you know, help a herd that wasn't thriving. They were adding sheep to it. And they often do that with all the different sheep herds. They will take sheep and transplant them to different areas to add some diversity to their genetics. And well, anyway, they were taking this one truckload of sheep up to this place, and the truck broke down. And they didn't know what to do. This is 1949, and so they released them right there where they were, which was at the base of the mountain, and they assumed they'd go up and join the other sheep, but they didn't. They went down into some other canyon country, and eventually that little group of sheep that they introduced in 1949 became a really thriving sheep herd. And it's one of the most successful sheep herds in Colorado right now.
So is it a secret? Can you tell us where? I mean, you're never going to draw this tag again,
here's
right?
Here's the reason that I don't elaborate on it. I mean, if guys want to figure it out, they'll figure it out. The reason I don't is because it's already hard enough to draw. Okay. And I've got family members that put in for that tag and friends and stuff like that. And we don't need to discuss it. If they're serious about it, they'll do a little poking around and they'll figure it out. We don't need to blow the draw up, so to speak.
Gotcha. But So it's a relatively accessible though, as sheep
Yeah,
country goes.
yeah, it's relatively accessible. It's still rough. I mean, there's parts of it that are shoot, man. You'd have to go in there with ropes and pulleys. Um, but there's parts of it that are more accessible than some of the high country sheep territory, or you know what I mean. So it's yeah, it's only like 7,500 feet in there.
So you found out when back in the spring that you
Yeah.
drew this tag?
I think it was on Easter Sunday. And I had gotten to the point, it's kind of funny, I'd gotten to the point where, it had taken me so long to draw it. And I kind of was like, man, I wonder if I'm going to draw this before I'm like 75 years old or something, And I would put in for it every year, but I got to where I didn't even, everyone was waiting for the day that the draw came out to see if they were successful, and I wouldn't even check, I'd be like, well, if I drew it, I'll eventually find out, but I'm not going to look. I felt like if I was sitting there waiting to look, I was just going to be let down again. So me and my son Lane were actually on our way to, family Easter dinner, and we had been sent on an errand to a grocery store, and Lane's like, Dad, did you see the sheep results are out? And I was like, no, I didn't see it. And he says, well, did you look? No, I don't look. And he says, why not? And I said, I know I didn't draw it. I'm just not going to be disappointed. And he says, Dad, just look real quick, And so I opened up my thing on the phone and started scrolling through there and got down to the sheep, and I saw successful next to my sheep application. I was like, whoa, something's wrong. You know what I mean? But it was kind of funny because I didn't even want to look, and I finally drew it.
Well, that's awesome, man. And then so you drew this tag, and for people, like, if you don't know Danny, this guy hunts a lot. He hunts all kinds of different things, different places. So, it's not like you were gonna only focus on this sheep hunt for the entire, season.
For the entire
I'm sure
fall.
you did a bunch, but how did you change your plan or your mindset, I guess, now that you knew that you were going to be doing this?
Well, one of the reasons that I always liked that particular time to put in was because it really didn't mess up anything earlier in the fall. Now the primary reason was because I wanted to hunt sheep during the rut. But the secondary reason was that it allowed me to do all the other things that I do during the fall. So I did a lot of sheep scouting during the summertime, and then basically September, October, and early November, I was kind of concentrating on other things. I went to Iowa in early November and had a really fun hunt out there. And I just made sure that I was home by like November 15th so that I could switch my focus to going back out and looking for sheep. And that's kind of what I did. The crazy thing was, though, I come back from Iowa, and we have grandkids now. And my wife had our grandbabies over here, and they were sick. And I was like, oh, I love the grandbabies, but I don't want to get sick right now, And lo and behold, those little German-infested boogers got Grandpa sick. And I got, I was sick a week before the season started, and I still had an unfilled Colorado whitetail tag in my pocket. So I went out while I was sick, and I actually filled the whitetail tag, and I probably shouldn't have been out there doing that. I should have been resting up and, trying to stay in the warm, but I had a tag burning a hole in my pocket. But needless to say, by the time the sheep season got here, I got really sick, and just a bad chest cold or, flu or whatever it was in the beginning. And of course, I have a tag that's taken 25 years to draw, and it's a once in a lifetime tag. And what are you going to do? You just take all the over the counter medication that you can and try and push through it. Right. So, it it turned out that 2 days after I filled the tag, I ended up in the ER for for the afternoon. My lungs just got inflamed, and they, it was kind of like having an asthma attack. But it happened after I filled the tag, so that all worked out pretty good.
When did your season start, and like how many other people, if any, had tags in this unit, and was it archery only?
Yeah, it's an archery only. It's an archery only tag. There's one other resident that has a tag for that unit, and then a non-resident tag for that unit. So there's 3 guys that have tags in the unit. 3.
Did you run into either of those other hunters out there?
Yeah, I ran into the other resident and talked to him, and he was a really good guy. He ended up taking the other ram that I had kind of been looking at, my number 2 ram. And what was funny was he kind of chose that one, So we were kind of chasing 2 different rams, and it worked out really good. Yeah.
So when was this opening day? And tell me about the ram that you were hoping to get.
It was December 1st, and these sheep move on and off of private property up onto public land, and there's an area up there where they it's an old rock quarry that has been reclamated, and off one side of it is a deep canyon. I mean, hairy, nasty canyon, and then some private land down below, and then up there on the old reclamated rock quarry, the rams like to rut up in that area. They actually push the ewes up into that area. Well, I'd been scouting, and I had found this ram. I called him Lefty, and I started calling him Lefty just because his left horn was a little bit longer than his right horn. I mean, he'd broomed his right horn off just a little bit, and he was about full curl on the left. And I had watched him move on and off of the public from a distance, glassing. But the first few days of the hunt, he was nowhere to be found. Could not, we did see him once down below on some of the private, but he disappeared for a few days on us. And so we'd been spending a lot, we went up and hunted up on the side of the mountain a couple different times, but we spent most of our time glassing, just behind the glass watching for sheep, and trying to make sure also that another ram didn't show up, because that time of year, that's when you can have something that you didn't even know was there all of a sudden pop up. And the sheep rut is is something like I've never witnessed before. If you hunt elk during the rut or whitetails during the rut, it can be a little bit, the does and the cows, the bulls and bucks can be a little bit rough with them. They ain't got anything on sheep, man. There is no chivalry in the sheep world. They are super aggressive. You'll have 8 rams chasing one ewe, and that poor ewe, if she's the only hot one, every ram in the area is after her, and she's just trying to find a place to hide. And I've never seen anything quite as aggressive, where one ram will jump up and mount her, and another ram will knock him off of her, and another one jumps up. It looks like a crime scene, is what it looks like.
They've all had their way with her. Huh?
It's pretty bad, dude. She doesn't have any idea who the dad is. Let's put it that way.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're identifying this ram, but you've identified him previously, but you're not seeing him. And how far, like what's it like in terms of distance wise? How far are you setting up, and then how far are you going to have to move to try and get in position on these?
We're glassing from about 1.5 miles away, probably. And then, if we find him and he's up there in a huntable position, we're going to have to go park at a trailhead and climb about 1,500 feet up to him. And so it'll take an hour and a half, at least, hour and a half, 2 hours to get up to where he is if you've spotted him. So the day before the season started, we saw him in one of these crime scenes and watched him and a group of other rams chasing this one poor ewe. And then the day the season started, he disappeared. So on day 3, there was a snowstorm that moved in, and it dumped a foot of snow on us. And we couldn't really glass most of the day because you just couldn't see. It was cloud cover. You couldn't see up there on the side of the mountain. And we weren't up there in the middle of it, and I was real sick that day. Right at the very end of the day, the clouds just kind of parted, and we were able to see up on the side of the mountain for just the last few minutes of daylight, and we saw a bunch of new sheep that moved in. And immediately I was like, okay, if there's that many sheep that just moved in up there, he's probably going to be there, and I've got to find a way to get my butt up that mountain tomorrow morning in the snow. And I was having a hard time just climbing a flight of stairs without getting out of breath and coughing, going into like coughing fits. So I went to the urgent care that night, and I went in there and saw this doctor and told him, listen, man, I've got something that I've got to do tomorrow where I've got to be out in the elements and working hard. Is there anything you can give me to try and help me get up the doggone hill? And he gave me an oral steroid. And he told me this is going to kick in within about 3 hours. And within the next 24 hours, you're going to start feeling better. And thank goodness he gave me that, because the next morning,
So Ferris was on the roids.
Yeah.
Ferris, that's not the juiced ram, Ferris.
Yeah. I had to do what I had to do, but at least I had enough wind to get up the doggone mountain, and I was still.
Hang on. You got to tell me about this, though. I mean, a fresh foot of snow.
Yep.
And you had to drive up there, and you said you had to climb 1,500 vertical feet.
Yeah, between 1,000 and 1,500. Yeah. Yep. Yes.
Tell me, so what's that like, man?
Well, it's taxing whenever you do it, and really, I would have been fine with it if I didn't have this chest thing going on. And it was one of those things where once you started coughing, your chest is full of junk, and once you start coughing, you just your bronchial tubes would kind of spasm, and you'd go into these little coughing fits. So I just had to try and take it slow to where I didn't get to breathing real hard and start the coughing fits that wouldn't go away. But
and I think we should also mention here, maybe I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but I don't even know all the details, but you were filming this for Bowhunter TV, right?
We're filming it. Hoyt is going to be making a film out of this. It's a collaboration between Hoyt and Bowhunter TV. And
so how many people do you have with you?
I just had one cameraman. Now my son and another buddy were glassing from different points and watching. And they were, helping us throughout the entire hunt. But when we actually would go up the mountain, it'd just be me and my cameraman, Brandon Adams. And I got to choose him for this particular hunt, and I was happy that I did. It's hard to find a cameraman who's the right combination of hunter and videographer. You know what I mean? And Brandon is very accomplished, very good hunter. Who I could trust to, know when he can do what.
So you're doing, okay. So you guys head out and you like you said, it's obviously taxing. You're pushing through the snow. It's covering the ground. I don't know what the terrain is like, but like you can't see the ground. You don't know what your footing is. All that stuff.
Yeah. Well, have you ever heard of crampons? They're those deals that you put on your boots that have the spikes in them. Man, we went and bought a pair of those the day before because a lot of that stuff was really steep and we knew we'd just be slipping around, and those things were a lifesaver. So we had crampons on our feet and trekking poles, and we were pretty sure-footed with those things on. But the funny thing was we got up, you kind of break out of the timber, and we're just at the base of the national forest part, basically, and starting up into the public land. And my son Lane, who is watching from a distance, all of a sudden he calls me on the phone. We had cell phone service up there. He calls me on the phone and he's like, "Dad, there's that other hunter is up there and he's putting a stock on a ram right now, and I think it's Lefty." And I was like, "Oh, you're kidding me," And he says, "I told you should have got up there earlier this morning." And I was like, "Man, I had to kind of wait and see whether I was going to be able to make it up there or not, I just got all that medication the night before, and that guy beat us up there. Well, Lane, I can't see him or anything, but Lane is giving me a play-by-play. "Oh, God, he's getting close. He's getting close." And then all of a sudden he's at full draw. He's at full draw. And the next thing I know, Lane's like, "Oh, he shot him. He's going down. He's dead," And I'm just sitting there like, "Oh, crap, man. The guy probably just killed my ram," So we waited for, I don't know, half hour or something like that. And Lane is talking to me and tells me that the ram has died up above these cliffs. And so we kept going up a little bit higher, and when we got to a certain point, we could see him. We could see the guy up there trying to deal with this ram. And I hung up with Lane, and I called him because I'd met him and I talked to him before, and he picked up his phone, and I said, "Hey, man, it's Danny." And he says, "Hey, how's it going?" I said, "Man, well, not as good as it's going for you. Congratulations. I think you just killed my target ram." And he says, "No, you weren't after this one. You told me you were after that other one." And I said, that isn't that ram that I call Lefty?" And he says, "No, this isn't him." So I was like, "Oh, he's alive." You know what I mean? And he's back in the game. So I hung up with him and I called Lane and I said, "Hey, man, glass up there higher and tell me if there's more sheep up higher." And he says, "Yeah, there's 3 different groups up above you. You got to keep going up the mountain." So we hung up with him and started climbing, and we came to the first group, and we were able to stop and glass them and look at them, pretty close through the big glass, and we didn't see them in there. So they were kind of out in the middle of this wide open area where they like to rut, and we were going up the edge of this canyon that gave us a little bit of cover. So we just kept climbing. When we got up there higher up into this area, we found another group of sheep, and like as soon as we raised the binoculars, I saw him and I knew it was him. I mean, he's just a awesome looking ram. And I told Brandon, "Oh, that's him. So we sat there and we're kind of scheming, plotting out how we want to try and get over to him, because they've got a lot of ewes around him. Now the good thing about sheep during the What's that?
Is it pretty much like wide open country?
No,
where you are.
There's some topography to it, and there's some trees and some cover for you to use to try and get closer to them. But as we were sitting there watching them, they were moving down. They were moving down the mountain. So in the middle of all this is kind of like a big chute, a drainage where everything comes down into one piece. And I told Brandon, "Man, we got to get into that drainage. They're going to try and hit the top of it and go right down through there." So we dropped down the mountain as fast as we could and hooked over below them into this drainage. And when we were going through there, where there was a point where we kind of ran out of cover, and we had to move across this stuff. Now, one of the big benefits of hunting them during the rut is that those rams are so aggressive and so focused on the ewes. The ewes would get a little bit spooky, but it's like if you had a hot ewe in there, those rams didn't even look over. You know what I mean? So we were able to get through that area where they could see us. The ewes kind of spooked back up the hill, but once we got down below, I felt like I knew where he was going to come down the chute, and we just worked in there to the edge of the chute. And the next thing you know, there's a couple of rams chasing a hot ewe up above us, and 2 rams pop up on this knoll watching them, and one of them was Lefty. And
okay, this is where we quick pause. This is the dramatic moment where I got to pause to do some business. Okay. So Danny's in position. We're all on the edge of our seats. Lefty's popped up, but I've got to pause for our sponsor, the Archery Trade Association. You going to the ATA show, Danny?
I haven't decided. I might. We're not displaying there, but I might go.
You know they got this new consumer event this year.
I do. It'll be interesting.
And
to
I'm
see
excited.
How that turns out.
I'm gonna stay for the first full day of the consumer show because I want to see how it goes. And I want to let everyone know, bow hunters, if you live for the hunt, you know it's about more than gear. It's about the community. The Archery and Bow Hunting Super Show, January 9th and 10th in Indianapolis, brings that community together. Get a first look at the newest bows, arrows, and hunting gear. Learn from the pros and swap stories with hunters who share your passion. January 9th and 10th in Indianapolis, the gear, the knowledge, the people, all in one place for the first time ever. Don't miss it. You can get your tickets and more info at archerytrade.org/super show. So I'm looking forward to being there. And, you know, Danny, people have been begging for years to let consumers into the ATA show. And so all those folks who have said they've always wanted to go, this is your chance here in 2026. It's just a few weeks away now. Get your tickets, come out, check it out. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I hope you get out there, Danny. Come on out.
I hope I do too. It'll be neat to see how that goes. We've been going to the ATA show for years, you and I, and it's always been closed to the public. So I feel like this is a pretty big opportunity for people.
Well, it is, and I think it's a pretty good opportunity for the ATA too, because you know there's been some manufacturers who have stopped coming, and I think that if they can generate enough fresh energy with the consumer side, maybe they can get some of those folks to come back to the show too, which would be kind of neat.
Yeah. Well, you've never seen so much bow hunting equipment in one place at one time. That's for sure.
So, okay, with that, and my apologies for the interruption, Danny, but we're about 30 minutes in, and I was like, man, that's a good time for a break and take care of the Archery and Bow Hunting Super Show. So Danny and BA are hunkered down in this chute, and there's a hot ewe, and 2 rams pop up on the edge of this chute, and Lefty's one of them, and you take it from here.
It was, man, kind of uneventful because we didn't have to move much right there. He popped up for us, and he's only 25 yards, but up at a very steep
25 yards.
25 yards.
It's hard. Isn't bow hunting amazing? You watch these animals from a mile and a half away through your scope, and then you go and you put on a stalk, and like they're right there in your lap.
Bam. And it was real steep uphill, but he was fully focused on the rut fest that was going on in front of him, and I mean, quite frankly, we could have done jumping jacks right there, and I don't know that he would have paid any attention to us. But it was cool. I was able to draw back, settle my pin in on a really nice quartering away shot. Poor Brandon, right before I was getting ready to shoot, I guess he said, hold on a sec. and I didn't even hear him. I was in the mode.
Yeah, you were in the zone, dude. You had the pin. The pin was on the vitals.
The kill button had been punched, and I guess Brandon was just playing with the focus just a little bit, and he just didn't say it loud enough. But he did manage to get the shot in focus. It was a really cool shot. I hit him quartering away, and the sheep immediately, they took off up the hill, but there's a knob up there, and we could not. He disappeared immediately, and I felt like it was a pretty good shot. I wasn't very worried. And we gave him a few minutes and ended up coming up over the hill. And as soon as we got up over top of that knob where I had shot, Brandon was the one that spotted him and, just pointed over there and said, "Look right there." And it was a culmination of, 25 years of waiting and being fortunate enough to take the one, because on a hunt like that, I probably would have hunted that ram for maybe the first half of the season, and then after that switched into, okay, we're going to try and get a legal ram taken, but to be able to take your target ram and to get on him, it was just very fortunate. I was very blessed, and he was walking up on him.
Well, what was the date on this?
December 4th.
So it was the 4th. So it only took 4 days.
Yeah. Didn't take that long. Didn't take that long.
How long's the season go if you'd have needed it?
It was 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks. So, and my son was getting married during the second week. So I was like, there was some urgency to trying to make sure that tag was filled, before that wedding happened.
It would have been hard to explain to the rest of the family why you weren't at the wedding.
Oh no, I'd be at the wedding because the wedding was only, a couple hours away. But I might have showed up in camouflage, and I wouldn't have been there for the reception, But fortunately, that the tag got filled before that. But it's something else. You watch them, those sheep, when you walk up on them, they're so impressive. And that time of year when they're just built like a little Sherman tank, their chest is so wide, and walking up on him, this is, it's a dream ram, and I know it. I'd waited a long time for it, and it was, the completion of my Colorado Big 9, and something I'm going to remember for a very, very long time, man. It was awesome.
Well, so I get the sense that, this was a pretty old ram, a pretty big, pretty good scoring ram, right?
Yeah. We have not scored him, but I can tell you, like, I have been for a long time paying attention to, in Colorado, every sheep that is taken has to be checked in with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife. And when you check that sheep in, they're checking the age of the sheep. They're checking its general health. They're taking measurements off of the sheep, and some of the measurements they take are the base measurements and the overall horn length on both sides. And those are published measurements. So in that particular unit, to take what is considered a top end ram, you're looking for 16-inch bases and 36-inch horns. And generally speaking, if you take a ram that has 16-inch bases and 36-inch length, if he carries his mass pretty well, you're looking at a ram that's going to be pushing the 180 mark, and 180 inches is like Boone and Crockett. And that's a really big sheep. That is the upper echelon of, Colorado sheep. And, to tell you the God honest truth, I'm not a good enough sheep scorer to field judge one and tell if they have that or not. You know, it's very difficult. There's a lot to learn about field judging sheep. And I had a lot of friends that were trying to help me out with teaching me what to look for. You know, there's something called the rule of thumb, where you're looking between their horns, and if it looks like you could fit your thumb in there and that's about it, then that means that they've got pretty good mass. They've also got this thing called alien head, where the horn, the bases of the horn start to get so big that their head kind of starts to bulge out at the top like an alien. And then as far as length goes, you're looking for a horn that comes down and comes lower on the face. You know, there's some rams that are full curl, but they're really, really tight, you know, really, really tight curled. And he might, even though they're full curl, they might not have that much length. So you're trying to take all of these things into account. And with mine, I didn't care what the score was going to be. I was just looking for the one that I thought was the most impressive, you know. And this one was like that. But when we got him down and got him to the Parks and Wildlife and checked him in, I was blown away. But they were measuring the bases on him, and he has 17-inch bases on both sides. So that is just an incredible sheep, you know. His longer horn was 37 inches long. So, you know, I don't know what he's going to score out to be, but he's a good one, man. He's a good one.
It's gonna be high in the Colorado record.
Oh, I have no idea, to tell you the truth, how many have been taken, you know, in that class, but he's all I could hope for.
Congratulations, man. I mean, that's an incredible hunt. It's an incredible accomplishment. It's an incredible testament to the power of patience and perseverance, you know,
Yeah.
and what you can accomplish if you just refuse to stop applying and refuse to stop going out there, no matter how crappy you feel.
Yeah. And well, you know, sheep are an extremely limited resource. And one thing that I don't think a lot of people realize about sheep is that those herds have to be heavily managed. Their sheep are very susceptible to several different types of lung diseases and things like that. There are very few everyday guys that get to hunt sheep. Let's face it, like, sheep hunting is generally a rich man's sport, you know. And if you're blue collar guy like me, you've got to hope to draw a tag one day. And the only way that the odds are long, but all of that money that you put into those draws goes to the conservation of those sheep. And without hunters who are trying to draw these sheep tags, and people who are buying licenses and things like that, we wouldn't have wild sheep. Literally, hunters are the ones who fund the conservation efforts that maintain our wild sheep herds and keep them around. So it was awesome to help with that for a long time, and for it to finally come together, and for me to get my chance. That'll probably be the only chance I ever have to hunt sheep. So I'm tickled that it happened for me while I was still young enough to do it.
Yeah, pretty awesome stuff. And then, of course, that completed your Big Nine.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know anything about the Big Nine in Colorado. Like, how many people do you even know? Like, how many people have done the Big Nine?
I don't know how many people have done the Big Nine. It's quite a few. I don't
with
know.
Archery gear.
Yeah,
with archery
gear. Quite a few. I would think there's probably, like, I hate to say, it's probably 50 or more. Yeah. If you go back, here in the last 20 years, some of these tags have gotten even more difficult to draw. Moose has always been really difficult to draw. But I know guys like Bill Pellegrino, my buddy Bill, he hunted this unit 10 years ago, and he's drawn like 4 sheep tags in the state of Colorado. But he started applying way earlier than I started applying. He started applying like in the 80s, you know.
So it's not. I thought you said earlier it's a once in a lifetime.
They've changed it to a once in a lifetime here recently. So it didn't used to be once in a lifetime, but now it is. And you know, I'm not certain. I know that you have to wait 5 years before you can even start applying again. But you might be able to hunt ewes again, because moose are also once in a lifetime here in Colorado. And I just can't take another bull moose. I think that I can apply for cow moose tags and might be able to draw a cow moose tag one day, you know. So it might be the same. I'm not positive whether you can apply for ewe tags in the future, but I don't think you're able to apply for a ram tag. It's once in a lifetime now. But back then it wasn't, you know. So you've had some guys that have accomplished it. Now, Colorado Bowhunter Association also gives out a Big Ten award. There is a 10th species, and that's desert bighorn sheep is added to that. But the desert bighorn sheep is even harder to draw than the moose. So there's only been like 2 or 3 guys that have ever done the Big Ten, you know.
And is that separate preference points for that?
Yes.
tag?
Yes. Yep. And you can't put in for both bighorn sheep and desert bighorn sheep. You got to put in for one or the other. So all these years I've been putting in for regular Rocky Mountain bighorn. And now, starting next year, I'm going to start applying for the desert bighorn sheep tag. And, you know, that'll be like getting struck by lightning. You know, the odds of me drawing that before I'm, you know, even if I had a whole nother lifetime, it might not happen.
Yeah, I'm not going to bet against you. I don't know if anyone's picked up on this over the course of this conversation, but certainly if you are aware of Danny and you know him, we have sort of a running joke within the confines of the Bowhunter magazine family. He's known for being abnormally lucky.
Well, there's some days I might argue that, but
you've had some tough breaks, but you've had a lot of good fortune too, and certainly, you know, not to diminish the hard work. I mean, when it comes down to it, you could say there's some luck in drawing a tag, but you know, you still have to go out and fill it, and that requires a lot of effort. So,
for sure.
Listen, let's talk about equipment a little bit. You mentioned, you know, Hoyt's going to have, you know, a special video project that comes out of this that's going to be, you know, probably in addition or complementary to vice versa, you know, what we do with Bowhunter TV. But obviously you were shooting a Hoyt bow. Tell us about the bow you were shooting, your setup, maybe anything you did specifically, you know, to optimize for this particular hunt.
Well, it just so happens that I've got that baby. I was working on it this morning, doing a couple things to it. Let me pull it out of the press. So I was shooting the Alpha AX3, and man, this bow, the best new feature on it, in my opinion, is this XTS tuning system. That system enables you to do a lot of tuning without the use of a press. You can tune it right there on the shooting line if you want to. So it is a wedge system that basically allows you to adjust the amount of resistance on the limbs individually. And I couldn't believe how quick and easy it was to get this thing tuned up, you know, and I was shooting very, very good with it going into this season.
You can move horizontal and vertical tears with that system, right?
Yeah, you can. It's primarily horizontal tears, I think, but it's basically, you could use it like tiller tuning if you wanted to.
Yeah, and so you were hunting So for folks who, if you didn't pick up on it right away, this is a 2026 Hoyt bow
Yes.
that Danny was hunting with here in the fall of 2025. So
Yeah.
you had an advanced copy, as it were.
I did. It had actually been released. They released it, I think November 1st or right thereabouts, somewhere right in there. But I was able to get my hands on this earlier in the year and get familiar with it. And I just wanted a bow on this trip that I was intimate with already. And that's hard to do if you're getting it like a month before the season starts, With this one, I'd been shooting it since August, and I was shooting it very, very well.
Well, I know a lot of people are excited about that XTS tuning system, and people have been, wanting Hoyt to come out with something like that for a little while and been asking for it. And seems like everyone's pretty satisfied with the result here.
Oh yeah, yeah, it works very, very well, very well. I was shocked how quick I was able to get that thing tuned up without the use of press. That was awesome.
Yeah. So tell me about, some of your other accessories and, your arrow setup, your broadhead that you used for this hunt, all that stuff.
Well, the arrow that I was shooting is the Easton 5.0. I really like that arrow. It's a lightweight arrow that allows me to add weight where I want it. I'm shooting it. It's, a fairly light setup. I think that my arrows on this hunt were like 410 grains or something like that. And this thing was spitting them out pretty darn fast. I shoot a Lumenok, so I've got a little extra weight on the back end, and then I was running a Rage up on the front. The Rage with a little bit smaller cutting diameter. I forget which they call
the plus
yes.
B, or?
Yeah.
Gotcha. And the no collar version?
Yes, the no collar version. Yep. And he went 40 yards, so it worked out pretty well.
Beautiful. What else you got on there? Sight? What kind of?
My spot hog. My spot hog. I've been shooting spot hog for a very, very long time. It's got the spot hog boonie on there, and that sight is just awesome. You can adjust for everything under the sun with that sight. And, spot hog, the number one reason, there's lots of reasons that I've liked spot hog for a long time, but the number one reason is I take at least one major digger on my bow every year. And I mean, like fall on top of it type deal. And spot hogs are just tough. They're the toughest sight on the market, in my opinion. I had mentioned Bill Pellegrino a little while ago, but Bill owns a shop called Bill Pellegrino's Archery Hut here in Colorado. And I remember a long time ago, I was shooting another brand of sight, and I was in there BSing with him, and this guy comes in and says, asked Bill what he was shooting on his bow, and Bill said, I'm shooting a spot hog. And he says, oh, really? Well, and he was looking at some of the sights on the wall, and he was looking at a couple other ones that were about half the price of a spot hog. And he said, well, why is that one so much higher priced? And Bill says, well, I'll show you why. And he took an Allen wrench and he pulled it off the side of his bow, and he stuck it on the ground, and he stood on top of it and hopped up and down a couple of times. And Bill weighs 215, 20 pounds. And then he took it and he put it back on the side of the bow, and he Allened it back on, and he says, come here. And he walked around the corner to the shooting area, and he shot an X with it. And I was like, oh, that's pretty impressive, for a 200-pound guy to jump up and down on his sight, on the ground, and then throw it on the dang bow and shoot an X with it. And like I said, every year I take some kind of massive digger on my bow, and ever since then I've been shooting a spot hog, and they've never failed me. Super precise product, man.
And one thing I learned, being an Eastern guy, there's not as much awareness of spot hog in this part of the country.
Yeah.
They're based out in Oregon, and I think that they're known more for their adjustable sights. But honestly, if you're I say just, it's not really just, but if you're a whitetail guy back east, Spot Hogg makes some really great, pretty simple sights like the Hunter.
Yeah.
And I've got a Hunter and I use it. I have a Fast Eddie that I use a lot, but I have a Hunter that I use a lot. And a Hunter is it's a basic sight by Spot Hogg standards, but it's got all that bulletproof durability built into it. It's got easy, toolless micro adjustability in it. It's a lot of pretty much a lot of guys in my part of the world are going to need, but you should look into it. The only bad thing for Spot Hogg, if you do buy one, it might be the last sight you ever need because it's never going to wear out.
Yeah.
That's the only bad thing for them.
When people first pick those up, Spot Hogg has a really unique pin adjustment system on there where I'm not an engineer, so I hate to.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It takes a little getting used to it.
It takes a little bit of getting used to it first. You're like, how the heck do I move this thing and in and out and up and down? But the beautiful thing about it is once they are locked in, they are locked in. I don't care whether you run a branch through the middle of this thing, you're not going to do anything to it unless you actually break the metal pin or something. It's locked in position. There's really nothing that you can do to move that thing, and I have tested it.
What was the temperature when you shot this ram?
It's probably about 30 degrees, something like that.
Okay, so it wasn't insanely cold.
It wasn't insanely cold. The day before it was colder, and the wind was blowing the snow in sideways. But
what kind of camo and boots and stuff were you using?
We were using my Kenetrek boots. I've worn Kenetrek boots for a very, very long time, and they're pretty much all I wear. You try a pair on, you feel like Superman. So the camo I was using was the new Code of Silence. They're merino.
The Riverwolf stuff?
No.
That's what I ran this fall. That stuff is great.
No, you might
have
putting me on the spot.
You might have had some heavier stuff. That's all right, but you like that Code of Silence stuff,
oh yeah,
don't you?
yeah. It's super comfortable. Merino layers, and their base layers are awesome. So I was wearing Code of Silence merino stuff, and then just a soft shell vest over it, and I had a puffy put down in my backpack in case I needed it, but we didn't really need it that day. The wind had stopped blowing and the sun was out, and even if it's cold here, if the sun's out and it's not blowing real hard, it's not that bad. And when you're climbing, you're not cold anyway. My biggest concern was just trying to keep from going into a coughing fit at the moment of truth.
So this sheep hunt, this is going to be featured in an upcoming issue of Bowhunter sometime summer of 26, an upcoming episode of Bowhunter TV, third quarter of 26, on the Outdoor Channel, Sportsman Channel, and I don't know what the timing is for Hoyt's special project, but I'm sure that'll be something
should
cool
be coming up pretty quick.
Well.
Coming up pretty quick, yeah? Right around the first of the year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that'll be on what, YouTube?
I believe so. On
Gotcha.
Hoyt's YouTube channel.
So what are you going to do? We're coming up on our hour here, Ferris. We're at 58 minutes and 45 seconds. So hard to believe, but it's getting to be about that time to wrap it up. How are you going to top this? How are you going to top this in 2026, Ferris?
There's no way I will. There's no way I will, unless there's something crazy that happens on a giant elk or something like that, which isn't very likely. Yeah, I don't have anything in the pipe that compares to this thing,
We do. We got to go to Africa.
Oh man. Maybe. I I like our North American species, man. Africa, I'm not trying to insult anybody that's big on Africa. I love all the Africa species. That'd be super cool. But, there's our North American species. No, I haven't. I've turned down a couple different opportunities to go over there, and I've kind of kicked myself for doing it. But at the same time, I don't know where in the world I would put, if I brought home 4 or 5 African animals, I don't know where I'd put them. I need to, I,
I haven't been either, Ferris, which is why I think that you and I need to go. And this is what I've always said, because you mentioned it earlier, you're a blue collar guy,
yeah.
And I mean, I certainly am. Or maybe technically I'm not, right? Maybe technically neither one of us are, because we work on computers or whatever. But point is, we're not rich.
Yeah.
We don't own a bunch of hunting land. We don't buy high dollar outfitted hunts, and we can't buy governor's tags and all that. And if I go to Africa, the thing I've always said is I want to go. I definitely want to go, and I want to shoot whatever I can shoot. But I just want to take fantastic photos with everything that I kill. And then I want to load that animal up, in the PH's vehicle. And I just want to tell that guy, hey, listen, I probably don't ever need to see these things again, because I don't think I can afford the cost of sending them home and then having them all made up and everything, because you could probably run into as much as the cost of the trip itself just on the taxidermy. So I may memorialize it in photography and just let the meat feed the camp and the local community and call it a day.
To each their own. And I know some guys who are, they're fanatics. And they went over there one time, and now they save all of their money to get back there as often as they possibly can. And, maybe if I went over there one day, maybe it would be the same with me. But if I was given the choice between, going over to Africa and taking some plains game or something like that, or just doing an awesome moose hunt somewhere, up above the northern border, somewhere up north, man, I just like our North American species, man. I'd rather spend my time and money and effort, chasing what we've got here. That's just me. And I might be, the guy who really enjoys it over there says you're a fool. Maybe I
don't necessarily disagree with you. There's probably a reason that neither one of us have gone, given how long we've both, been working in the industry, but at the same time, my counter to you would be, I get it. If you're spending all your own time and money and that's your preference, that's what you do. But the beauty is you might not have to choose, Ferris. I might just come to you and say, hey, you got a great opportunity here. You don't have to give up that moose hunt. I'm just telling you, get to go to Africa too.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. Well, it'd be cool. Hey man, if you have a mouse infestation somewhere and you want to hunt mice for the afternoon, I'm in. Whatever you want to go hunting for, I don't discriminate.
Listen, Danny, it's always good to catch up with you. Certainly, as you said, sheep is not generally the kind of hunt that the average bow hunter gets to do.
No.
Maybe not even ever in a lifetime. So we don't talk to a whole lot of successful sheep hunters on the show. And, the great thing is, you made it obvious that it's not easily accessible, but it is accessible to the common man if you're patient, and certainly worthy of congratulations. And I'm going to look forward to watching the videos that come out of this, and I'll be following up with a deadline for you for your article. You'll need to get that into me here before too long.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Berg.
Yep. And now that you got that sheep out of the way, and I had another pretty lousy whitetail season, I will say that for 2026, though, see, Danny and I, we like to run. He's gotten the better of me. It's been a few years since I took a a title, but we like to have a little whitetail competition. Now, 2026, I'm going to draw Kansas and Iowa.
Ooh.
So I think that I have a pretty good shot at being competitive in 2026.
Well, I hope you kill a big one, buddy. I hope you do.
I really would make me feel good, because I tell you one thing, with everything I have on my plate as we head into the next year, I know that I'm going to earn every chance I get to get out in the field.
Yeah, there's something about whitetails, isn't there? It's just crazy. It's the most common game species that we have here in North America, and it's one of the most exciting. Period.
And that gets me more excited than a big whitetail buck. That's for sure.
I love it.
You got it. We'll see everybody next time on the Bowhunter Podcast.
Thanks for downloading the Bowhunter Podcast. All bow hunting, all the time. Pick up the latest issue of Bowhunter Magazine on your local newsstand, or connect with us online at bowhunter.com.